The loose cannon is a weapon that I have always wanted to get good at in TF2. Watching a bunch of videos in the past about this weapon always made me want to play with it, and then whenever I did equip it, I missed every single shot. But I wanted to finally make a change to that. After completing the 30 days of Huntsman challenge that I did earlier this year, I mean, technically last year, but it counts, I decided that I wanted to try and tackle another weapon in a shorter amount of time. And I thought that this was the perfect time to give the loose cannon another try. But to make this experience worse for myself, I decided for this 7 days challenge that I was only going to use the loose cannon. So to kind of force myself into using just that, and to avoid turning this week into a sticky spamming showdown, I equipped the sticky jumper. The sticky jumper, for those of you who don't know, is a sticky bomb launcher that does 0 damage to enemy players, but still allows you, the user, to perform sticky jumps with it without hurting yourself. Your legs still hurt when you hit the ground because the weapon isn't magic, but you won't take damage on the initial sticky bomb explosion that does send you flying. So what actually makes the loose cannon so special? I mean, first of all, obviously, you've got double donks, which is the main reason anybody would use this weapon. You've got a unique firing technique of the weapon, which is different to all other grenade launchers. And yeah, you could double donk. Double donks are the feature of the loose cannon that most people know about. They make the dopamine-inducing noise. You can fling enemies around the map with it. It does mini crit damage on the second hit, and they genuinely just feel incredible to hit. Might be one of the top 10 feelings in TF2, if that makes sense. It makes sense. You do get it. So I set out on my 7-day challenge to actually learn how to hit some things with this gun and not miss everything all the time. But God knows why I decided to start this the week of Christmas. But here we are. I opened stream that day hoping to just jump into a bunch of games and just see how it goes using this weapon and give myself kind of a base layer of understanding to hopefully build off in the next week. And it sucked. Day 1 of this challenge was terrible. I found it hard to aim the loose cannon for whatever reason. Maybe it's because I go months at a time without playing Demo Man, or maybe it's because I'm just bad at aiming. Anyway, it's inconclusive. And I felt that through my entire first stream, comparing it to the first stream of using the Huntsman, I wasn't doing well. I really wasn't getting that many kills. I also didn't really manage to hit that many double donks either. Sure, there were a few, but I eventually want to get to the point where I'm chaining a bunch of them together, or at least hitting them far more often than I am now. The actual damage of the loose cannon seems a fair bit lower than the regular grenade launcher whenever you don't hit a double donk, so making sure you hit as many people is incredibly important. And I wasn't hitting people. Now, incredibly, one of my chat viewers did actually gift me a strange loose cannon on day 1, meaning I could actually track my kills throughout this challenge without checking the scoreboard every game. So thank you, Mixer, from the streams. I appreciate you. And by the end of the first stream, which albeit was only an hour, I had 18 kills on the strange loose cannon, and I had 21 kills before I got given it. So not amazing, but could be worse, maybe, for an hour. Either way, this didn't feel good. Starting off day 2, Christmas Eve. That's where we are now. I changed absolutely nothing about the way I was playing, and somehow that seemed to work a whole lot better than the day before. I felt like I was hitting enemies more consistently with the loose cannon, and that I was managing to convert a lot of those hits into double donks as well. Still not as many or as often as I'd like to be hitting them, but my performance was definitely better than the day prior, and generally throughout the day I felt far more confident with this weapon in my hands than I have ever done previously. One thing that didn't improve massively on day 2 was my ability to fight scouts. I have always found scouts to be one of the hardest classes to fight as demo, ever since I started my YouTube channel, which is a long time ago. Sure, you only have to hit them once, maybe twice with a good pill normally, but trying to line up a double donk to actually do significant damage on a class that's jumping around you all the time just makes it almost impossible to do that, let alone try and do that consistently. Never mind the fact you also have to think about how long you're charging your shot for before you can shoot it because of the fuse time of the bombs you fire, and it just makes fighting scouts kind of stressful. When they walk straight at me though, it does make it a little bit easier. Now, the idea with the loose cannon is that you actually charge your shot a little bit before firing at an enemy, so hopefully the pill hits the enemy and then explodes straight away, which is what gives you a double donk. If you hold it for too long, though, it does actually hurt you. We get into that a little bit later, but most of the time you don't want that happening. But there we have it for day 2. Now, day 3 was Christmas, so I didn't actually stream or play any TF2 that day, which, yeah, what a good idea for a 7-day challenge to do it the busiest week of the year. But at this point in the challenge on day 4, I feel like I've actually already learned a fair bit on the loose cannon. Double donks do actually still feel really good, especially when you chain them together, and actually hitting the double donks yourself instead of watching a YouTube video of them is even better as well. So being able to chain a couple of double donks together myself instead of watching other footage of it just felt incredible. Like, you just feel amazing. However, as good as those double donks felt to hit, throughout this entire challenge, I was waiting for it to be over. I definitely felt restricted for the first time since starting a challenge like this one. Now, I am putting that mostly down to the fact that I was literally only using the loose cannon and I wasn't allowing a proper sticky bomb launcher. It made sense at the start of the challenge to make sure I was only using the loose cannon and improved on it. But with how a lot of games go in TF2, not having a secondary weapon, especially as a demo man, a lot of the time it's just a hindrance more than it is something to help me improve at a certain weapon. If this was a 30-day challenge, I absolutely would have been experimenting more with the loadouts to pair it with this weapon. But because it was a shorter challenge and the loose cannon was the main focus, I kept this sticky jumper equipped the whole time, even though that was the main thing that felt really limiting. And I really don't think if I did this challenge again and allowed myself to use a sticky bomb launcher, that I would actually feel the same as I did when I did it last time. Going into day 5 is something that did take me a while to notice about the loose cannon, and that is its complete inability to do any damage to any building any engineer puts up. Because most of the damage from the loose cannon comes from hitting an enemy twice in one shot. You physically cannot hit buildings for a good amount of damage, no matter how hard you try. For some reason, you're just not allowed to double donk a sentry gun to try and take it down faster. This is, again, where I started feeling really limited when it came to this loadout I was using in the challenge, because if I just had a regular sticky bomb launcher, then the problem of having to deal with enemy buildings would have been taken care of. And I have noticed that every time I've used the loose cannon since doing this challenge, I have had a sticky bomb launcher equipped, and that's made the experience far more pleasant. Not to mention the fact that as a demo man, it is one of your key roles to be able to destroy buildings, because your gear is specifically centered towards doing that. I could fire loose cannon cannonballs at sentries all day, and that sentry would still be shooting at me and would be perfectly healthy. And getting towards the end of the challenge, it really started making me wish the whole thing was over and I didn't have to use this loadout anymore. Now, technically, I didn't have to use the loadout. It's a self-imposed challenge. I could have swapped it, but me wanting this challenge to be an actual challenge to learn to use the loose cannon, I didn't. We've been over this. Now, there is a feature of the loose cannon that I haven't spoken about much yet. And to be honest, that's because I hadn't been using it for whatever reason. So because I have the sticky jumper, I've talked about this a lot, I'm using that to sticky jump all over the map when I need to. But technically with the loose cannon, you don't need to do that. Like I mentioned earlier, if you hold down the fire button and just don't shoot the cannonball, eventually the grenade explodes and you hit yourself. But what you can do is actually use that explosion as a rocket jump and send yourself across the map this way. So this whole time, if I had been utilizing these loose cannon jumps, I wouldn't have had to have had the sticky jumper equipped at all during this challenge. Unfortunately, I started messing with doing these jumps far too late in the challenge to properly get a good handle on them before the end. But having the knowledge that you can do that and performing a few more of these jumps was definitely entertaining and made the rest of the challenge seem a lot easier now that there was something like this I could keep attempting instead of shooting at more sentry guns. So here we are, day 7. I definitely feel like I've learned a lot about the loose cannon over the week I was using it. And by the end of it, I genuinely did feel more confident when using the weapon, and that my ability to hit double donks fairly consistently was marginally higher than 0 chance, which is basically all I could have asked for. Like I've been mentioning throughout this video, I cannot lie and say I wasn't happy that this challenge was over though. It was going to be nice to play something else for a bit after doing this. Now, I did do this fairly quickly after the 30 Days of Huntsman video as well. Probably not my best move because I'd already been limiting myself for a month. And then I have like 20 days where I'm not, and then I am again. Not ideal. But by day 7, at the end of the challenge, I had managed to rack up 281 kills on the loose cannon, which I'm fairly proud of considering how this challenge could have gone, and also how much time I was actually able to play, considering it was the week of Christmas as well. Maybe next time I need some better planning.